Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today is yet another beautiful day. I don't know where it is that you're tuned on, but I can tell you it is a beautiful day to be alive. Imagine you are alive and probably you don't have pain in your body. Probably you have a job, you have a car, you're listening to me in your car. You're living in a peaceful country. It's a beautiful day. Come on. It's a very beautiful day for us to be the best that we can be, to go out there and to be a blessing, to add value into this world. The Life with Signatures podcast is always going to be about purpose, productivity, and resilience. And I'm so glad today that I have an opportunity to yet again inspire, equip, enrich, teach, and cause you to think about your life, about your purpose, about your productivity today, and about your resilience. We are leaning in onto resilience for a minute, even as we are discussing in this new series the 5 benefits of discouragement. Today, let us look at benefit number 1. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Something happened to me some years back, and I remember it was one of the most discouraging things, my friend. One of the most discouraging things. So it's a long story. I don't know how I can summarize it, but let me just do this. So I was working with an organization, and at the end of the contract of this organization, it's an organization whose roots is in Kenya. And I was working with this organization in Uganda. And so in the nature of our work, we needed to purchase some vehicles, and we had some 2 vehicles that we were using. And so when the contract came to an end, I drove one of those vehicles back to Kenya. And of course, the problem is that the vehicles were bought in Uganda. And so the owner of the vehicles wanted to dispose them off, and they wanted to dispose them off in Kenya, and it couldn't happen. And so given that they thought, I'm not so, trustworthy, to help them to dispose of the vehicles, what did they do? They called someone they have never met, or introduced to someone they have never met, to help them to dispose of the vehicles. And guess what they did? They gave the original logbooks to these vehicles to this person, plus the keys of the cars, plus the cars themselves. And the person crossed the border from Kenya to Uganda with those cars and switched off his phone up to today. So I was on another assignment with these guys in another country, and when I came back, as I was in the streets of Kampala, I see one of the cars parked at a petrol station somewhere. What happens? I go back and I call the police. I call this organization and tell them, I've seen your car. And we mobilize, and the police arrest these guys and so on, and we get the car basically impounded. So we're supposed to start the process of getting the original thief of those particular cars. Cumbersome stuff and so on. Meanwhile, the car has been impounded. And so every day, if you wanted to find out how the case was going on, you just go to the police station and you see the car there, and you know that things are moving. So one day what happens is that I go and I see the car is not there. It has been given back to the guy who quote unquote purchased it. My friend. As in, it had been given back without me being informed, who was a complainant. You know what happened? I felt like air had just been punched out of my body. I felt so discouraged. But at the end of the day, why was I even discouraged? Because it was not even my car. It was my boss's car who did not trust me to dispose it off in the first place. Why was I being discouraged? Maybe just because I was a good man. I still am a good man anyway. So I was telling you that story just to bring to light that we go through discouragement from different angles. And the question that I want us to answer is this: can we learn one or two things from discouragement? Today, let us learn one thing. There is a way that discouragement introduces you to yourself. One of the benefits of discouragement is that it introduces you to who you are. You get acquainted with yourself. It removes all the dross. It's like a refiner's fire, purifies you somehow. Depending on the level of discouragement it is, it purifies you, and you get to understand what matters in life, what is the most important things in life. Discouragement invariably forces you to look inside, to lean inside, not to look outside, to look inside at who you are, the essence of who you are. It is during adversity, as Coach John Wooden said, that a man is most acquainted with himself. And perhaps you will not have an introduction to yourself when the bread is buttered on both ends, and there is airtime on your phone, and there is a sausage frying. Okay? And you look forward, and there's money in your account, and you look forward to going to that adventure in the weekend with the boys to kick about. You look forward to flying to Dubai for, whatever it is. Maybe you'll not be introduced to yourself. Perhaps you will not have that introduction to yourself when the bread is buttered and the tea is sugared and the window is curtained and the smartphone is loaded with and the fuel tank is full. Most that people come to be introduced to themselves is when they are discouraged. Most people have come to terms with who they really are because the trigger was that moment of discouragement. And I personally discovered my purpose at some time back in 2010 because I was going through a point of discouragement. I had gone through a serious bout of discouragement that was brought about by a failure in a relationship that I was in. And the person that was counseling me, she looked at me, my pastor's wife, she looked at me and she said, "You've lost weight within 24 hours after the breakup of that marriage." I mean, it was a marriage, to that relationship that was supposed to lead to a marriage. She said, "You've lost weight in 12 hours. I saw yesterday, but you are like half your size." It was one of the biggest discouragements of my life at that moment in time. That discouragement made me come face to face with myself. It introduced me to who I am. And that particular journey of knowing who I am never stopped. I started searching, who is this Lawrence? Who is it? Who is this? And what is he supposed to do? I started asking those questions. And that's why I've come to get introduced to questions that Miles Monroe gave. The 5 questions of purpose. Who are you? Number 1. Number 2, where do you come from? Number 3, what can you do? Number 4, why are you here? And number 5, where are you going? See, I got introduced to those questions at the time of constriction, at the time of suffering, at the time of crisis, at the time of setback, at the time of discouragement. Every time you're discouraged and you're in a crisis, you get to start asking life important questions. Meaningful questions, authentic life questions, reason for living kinds of questions. And we talked about Job in the Bible, who was asking, why was I born? Why were there breasts to, nurse me when I was When I was born, why didn't I expire? Right? He asked those questions. And in the series that ended, we also reflected on those questions where, of course, that series we were talking about what's the purpose for living. Most people will get to answer that question when they are discouraged more than when they are encouraged. Did you realize that when we are encouraged, when things are going on well, we don't probably even have time to consider. We don't even have a time to consider the issues of life. Our heart is merry. Our heart is making merry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we don't want to interrupt the merriment. But when you're acquainted with yourself, when you're acquainted with trouble, when you're acquainted with discouragement, it's a perfect opportunity to have time to consider these questions. It introduces you to who you are, to yourself. If you are careful, you can ride on this wave of discouragement that has come into your life. You can start riding on this and start learning issues about you. Because I have a feeling, I have a sneaky feeling that there will not come another opportunity for you to be introduced to yourself. Probably the next best opportunity that will come to you to be introduced to yourself will be another discouragement, another crisis. So what am I saying? Why waste the discouragement? Why not use this moment in time to start being acquainted with yourself, to know who you are, to know what you would rather, to know what you desire, to know what you want out of this life, to know if you're given an opportunity to start over, what you will do better, to know if you had it all in this life, what will you focus on. This is the most important time to get answers to those questions, because if you're getting answers to these questions at the point where you are blossoming and you are excelling, some of those answers are not necessarily good. They are selfish. But at the moment where you've been stripped of your title and you're discouraged, probably you've been stripped of hope, you've been stripped of momentum, you've been stripped of your finances, you've been stripped of your marriage, you're discouraged. Don't use this discouragement in the negative. Let the discouragement do its work by introducing yourself to yourself. So use it at this moment in time and change it, and start asking these questions that I've just highlighted to you. Write answers to these questions. Let me tell you, it will be one of the most important things that you'll ever do to realize who you are, what you like, what you'd rather, what you desire, what is important to you, what matters to you, who you are, where you're going, where you come from, where you want to go, what you want to do in this life. Use discouragement to find answers and to be better acquainted with yourself. Tomorrow we're going to continue and we're going to look at another benefit of discouragement. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.